Up in the morning with the rising sun. This is summer like
This morning we have some high cirrus clouds, which makes for some nice glowing ribbony look to the clouds. They have a little bit of a rose color, some orange, some yellows, and we're pretty pumped up about this location. It's one of nature's wonders. It's a big hole in the side of a bluff right along the Ohio River. It has quite a bit of history to it, both outlaws and shelters for early travelers and explorers. So we're going to see what we can nail as far as some scenery shots, sunrise, and make a class out of this. We're exposed to 2 stops. Bring back with it.
All right, Keith, what are we doing here?
All right, we're walking up inside Cave in the Rock. This used to be like a pirate's hangout back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, with a beautiful scene or overlook on the Ohio River. It was also a navigational tool for the early settlers. But it's a photographic challenge because we've got sunlight and high clouds coming in one way, and of course a black cave behind us. And hopefully you can hear the echo because it's a pretty cool sound. But unfortunately, with the people who walk around and have no regard for nature, there's a lot of graffiti on the walls. So we're going to see if we can still capture a really great image and somehow weed that graffiti out. All right, we're back on the shores of the Ohio River again, but we're a little farther downstream than Cave in the Rock, about 15 miles. We're at one of the old lock and dam systems. I believe it's 51. That was blown out of here in 1978. This is the old pump house and control center. It's been abandoned probably since 78, but it's filled with machinery. It's rusty, it's rustic. The building windows have been all busted out and probably vandalized, but it's made for some interesting shots. So the key here, we want to control our contrast, maybe do some HDR photography, and use the sun. It's still in the lower quadrant, so we'll get some really long shadows and have some fun. So that's where we're here.
Hey, Eric, so what are you trying to shoot here, man?
Just getting the texture in the bricks, the unique curvature in the roof. It's not a common pattern with that scallop design.
We're in one of the pump rooms of the old lock and dam, and to the average person this just looks like a bunch of rusty old garbage, and it is, but there's some art in it, and maybe in black and white, maybe in subdued color, there could be some really interesting photos. It can be shot as a whole piece, it can be zoomed in on and cropped a certain way. Composition is very important in this, following the rule of thirds, following your angles, making sure things are going in a direction where the viewer can see what it is you're seeing. And like I say, just to the average person it looks like a piece of junk, but to photographers, we find art in everything. Right now what I'm doing is I'm looking at the lookout tower that overlooked the lock and dam, and I just see the American flag at full mast and a great breeze, and the composition looks like something I really want to try and capture. The sun angles look perfect, and because of the brightness of the sun, I'm going to use a polarizer. And but I'm switching lenses. I'm a little too wide with my 20 millimeter, so I'm going to go with my 24 to 105 f4. Probably shoot it around f8 and see what kind of depth of field I get and how crisp I can get it with that polarizer. So I'm envisioning a really cool landscape type shot. We'll see how it comes out. Okay, we're at one of the trailheads called Bell Smith Springs, and this is a real interesting place. It's a series of ravines where 4 streams come together and have carved through the hard rock some really nice landscape, some sharp rock cliffs, some drop-offs. Now the rock cliffs here aren't very tall, maybe 30 to 60 feet, but all year round here there are some natural pools that can be as deep as 25 to 30 feet. There's also a lot of macro photography along these trails, some of the small flowers, some of the mosses, some of the fungus, mushrooms if you want, that are growing on the trees and stumps. So there's quite a bit here for the photographer to feast on. There's some shots you can create with long lenses, possibly some wildlife, some owl. As a group we'll probably be a little too loud, so we might scare the deer, but we might see some owl, maybe some fox. It's hard to say. But as you look over my left shoulder here, you'll see there's some beautiful rock formations with water running through them. This particular pool seems to be a little less fluid than it was back in January, but for the most part, these streams and creeks are going to be running pretty good. So we're kind of pumped about this afternoon, and we'll spend the next 4 or 5 hours in this ravine having a good time. That's the red arrow. That's the white arrow. See the difference? White trail, red trail. And what's the difference? Something like this landscape here with a wide angle lens, depending on how close the leaves were to you, would give the illusion of this being a rather large canyon in a large body of water. It's obviously a very narrow canyon, but you can do anything you want with the lens in the right place. All right, so this is one of the ravines that I was talking about where the whole base of it is solid rock. I couldn't tell you if it's granite or whatever, but you can see where the river's been cut through it. Right now, the rainfall's been very, very light apparently because it's not gushing very well. However, when it is, there's about 3 or 4 stair-step waterfalls here with pools that run anywhere from 6 to 12 feet deep. It's pretty cold from what the locals tell me. But a lot of the rocks are covered with moss. That's what the dried light green color is. And sometimes when the moss gets real thick, a macro lens up close, it looks like a small forest. It's very cool. Okay, we're kind of like a bonus round here. We had our afternoon session cut short a little bit by some thunderstorms and some lightning coming through, and we've got this old dilapidated barn behind us. It is on private property. We don't have permission, so we're going to have to stay behind a fence. However, we got a little orange ball we might be able to deal with if the distant thunderstorms start to break up. So we're going to make the best of this, see if we can pump up some contrast and get some really cool tones, gray tones out of these barns. It's easier to shoot because there's not much color to them, but sometimes that can also make them look kind of dull and boring. So we're going to try to pump up the contrast and really get a strong image out of these. So we'll see how it works.